Well, folks, it's that time of the year again, and I'm not just referring to Christmas. It's the end of year panel. This may be real features, but it continues on from where special features left off. And it's going to be a much more smaller, cozier, not necessarily intimate affair, but hey, this is 2014, we don't judge. For this evening, my two panel members is the esteemed Kaiju Noir, who is a huge expert on Japanese monster movies, particularly in regards to Godzilla.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in their control, and not the other way around.
Quite right. And the myth, the legend, that is the Phoenix.
Howdy, everyone. How's everyone?
We're pretty much good, and I'm gonna do something a little bit different with my surmise of the movies this year. I'm just gonna try and keep mine as nutshelled as possible, because pretty much everybody knows what I've had to say about the movies we've got up for discussion this evening. So you two are essentially going to be having a little bit more floor time with this, because again, everybody knows what I'm going to be saying. So I'm just giving like nutshelled, or as Random DCE likes to say, condensed versions. And I'm going to start things off with the 60th anniversary movie of Godzilla. Visually, this was impressive, but I felt the human drama took too much away from the story, and I found it ever so frustrating when the film would pan to news coverage of the fight, and I didn't like the way Bryan Cranston was killed off so early, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson was just wooden. I'd say it was a much more serious improvement than the somewhat guilty pleasure from 1998, but that said, this movie left a somewhat not-so-great taste in my mouth. Not awful, excuse me, but could have been better. And with immediate effect after that, Kaiju Noir, your 2 cents.
Okay, well, Godzilla is a franchise that's very near and dear to my heart, and it's funny how I've been tracking this film's development ever since it was first rumored back in 2009, and well, now that the film is finally here, I can say that I highly enjoyed the film, personally speaking. What's interesting enough is that even though the film tried to advertise, well, the film was advertised as kind of like a return to that 1954 style destructive, apocalyptic Godzilla. Instead, surprisingly, we ended up getting a film that's more in line with the 70s superhero Godzilla, where there's a much more focus on the human characters and the new monsters, and have Godzilla show up at the last minute to bring balance to nature. It did definitely throw through a curveball, and it's really not the kind of Godzilla I was expecting, nor would have preferred to have. But I still found the film to be very interesting. I really like the human cast. I disagree, where I think that Aaron Taylor-Johnson's performance was very accurate in delivering a really realistic portrayal of a human soldier who has been trained to keep his emotions in check and always be trained not to lose his nerve, especially him being a bomb disposal expert. I thought that for Bryan Cranston was really magnificent as Joe Brody, and the fact that they cut him out so early in the film, I thought that was like maybe a harken back to like how Hitchcock treated his main actress in the film Psycho, how it was a twist that nobody saw coming. I liked what was his name? I liked Ken Watanabe as Dr. Serizawa. I really enjoyed the new kaijus, the Mutos. These really seem like an amalgamation of previous kaijus like Rodan, Gauss, Gigan, Orga, the Cloverfield monster, and it really made for some interesting opponents for Godzilla. Of course, Godzilla himself was magnificent as he always been. I like how CGI has allowed him to move and emote that, to be honest, the suit could never have done before. And I really like world building that was made in this film, and overall it just came down to a really fantastic film. The one problem I did have was that because Aaron was playing such a stoic character, having him by himself really slowed down the pacing of the film, especially during the second act, and it really would have benefited had there been a secondary character for him to work off of, like Bryan Cranston had he stayed on longer. And the them teasing the action scenes was really frustrating because it seemed like this movie was not trying to be an action movie. It was constantly making its audience think it was an action movie, when it really is more of a human-focused disaster movie with giant monsters in the background, or used as a backdrop. But overall, I thought this was a fantastic start to a brand new series of films. I'm really excited for the sequel for 2018, where Godzilla will go up against three of his most iconic foes, Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. And I'm really happy to see my favorite, my most beloved favorite fictional character be back in the spotlight once again.
Okay, some very interesting counterpoints, and I do see where you're coming from with that. Phoenix, you're up.
Okay, where do I begin?
Oh dear.
Well, I gotta say, I liked this movie when I saw it in theaters with my brother. I was a little disappointed when, as Andre said, it was teasing or building up to, we see Godzilla and it just cuts away at the last second. But the good news is, at least we finally get to see a lot more Godzilla later on. And as for Bryan Cranston's character, who I think was the best character in the movie, save for Godzilla, I had a theory about why they probably killed him off so early. I think he was originally going to stay in the movie a bit longer, but he was a bit busy working or wrapping up the TV show Breaking Bad at the time, and it was just schedule conflict. But it's just a mere theory. I don't know if it's true or not. But as for the human characters, Dr. Sirazawa, is that his name?
Yeah.
I'm not really good with names.
Yeah.
He was pretty good, I think. As for the Mutos, I'm a little disappointed they get more screen time than Godzilla, but that doesn't mean they're bad villains or creatures. But overall, the CG was a lot better compared to the guilty pleasure that MJ spoke of.
That's a lot of fish.
Well, it could have been a lot worse, but I digress. But overall, Godzilla is not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's actually, I give it a one thumb up and half a thumb. What I'm meaning is, it's like it's not a thumb up, it's not a thumb down. It's in between. So it's like my hand is perpendicular to the thumb.
What you're saying is it's passable.
Well, it's more than passable, I think. It's worth the money.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. I think I would like to bring up a bit of advice that my friend Zazubar from YouTube brought up, where for anyone else who has not seen Godzilla 2014, it's best to go in with the expectation that this is not an action movie, but rather, like I mentioned before, a disaster movie that focuses on the humans. Because if you're going to go in expecting an action movie, you're definitely going to be left with... definitely going to be disappointed if you're going in expecting like a big, all-loud, like destroy all monsters sort of brawl. That's what I'm what I want to say. Sorry.
That's cool. And we'll move on to the first of two sequels now. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Andrew Garfield was perfect as Parker and Spidey, respectively. Jamie Foxx played the pathetic, left-behind character nobody cares about seamlessly. But the stories had more holes than a colander with the way it played the scenario between Parker and Osborn, as the friendship aspect was so forced and added in last minute. Garfield and Stone had brilliant chemistry and just played off of each other better than the rest of the cast. I really wanted to like this movie more, but it was just okay. Nothing more. Phoenix.
I think I forgot to mention that this panel will contain spoilers, so spoiler alert! But anyway, moving on. Regardless of what Movie Bob says, I enjoyed Amazing Spider-Man 2 for what it is. It's not perfect, but in my mind, there is no such thing as a perfect movie. Yes, Amazing Spider-Man 2 has flaws, but that's to be expected. Every movie has a flaw. Amazing Spider-Man 2 was hilarious, at least most of the time, to me. Sometimes it would just slow down with Peter and Harry. I keep forgetting that guy's actor's name.
Dane DeHaan.
Thank you. I didn't really like Harry's performance most of the time. It felt like he sounded like he was about to fall asleep most of the time. Or at least until he got to the Goblin. And it's just not, even when he's feeling a bit betrayed later by Spidey, he's not really, or at least Spidey or Peter, it's just like he's barely putting any effort into emotion. But that's my 2 cents. Take it for what you will. As for the Electro, he was, as I would think or assume, he was the sort of like what would happen if a nerd got his hands on power and started to get his revenge on society.
So, like Syndrome.
On steroids.
Oh dear. Oh no! Let's not even picture that.
No, I'm not talking physically. I'm more like if he literally got like what was it? Mystical power that one could dream of having.
Oh yeah.
Destructive power. Sort of like a wizard or a sorcerer. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But more like he gets all this power and people see him as a freak even more, and he just decides, you know what? Society owes me. I'm going to get back at them for how they treated me. They forgot my birthday, and so I'm going to get my revenge. But moving on, the Rhino at the very, very end, it was very cheesy. That costume, it was just cheesy. And the way he said it, actually, now I think about it, there's actually a lot of references to the 1960s cartoon.
It's funny you mentioned with the Rhino costume. Everybody's affectionately nicknamed this the Rhino Thunder Megazord.
Well, to be honest, I'm not a Power Rangers fan. I grew out of that a long time ago. But moving on, the one bit... Oh, spoiler alert, by the way. I didn't mention earlier, this will contain spoilers. We can't avoid it. Gwen's death. Very similar to how it happened in the comics. The old comics from way back when. And Peter never forgiving himself, acting helpless, feeling powerless to save her, and I mean, you know that feeling when you lose someone you're close to, and you try your best but you fail. You know that feeling, right?
Well, I've written characters in the past that have that feeling of could have gotten there but didn't, and then they blame themselves for ages. But that gets the audience to care about the character, because if everything was peachy and perfect all the time, nobody would give a damn about the lead protagonist. You got to give them a reason to actually invest time and emotion into them.
Exactly. And as for the Goblin, well, his design, I felt like they probably just copied and pasted from 10 years, actually 12 years ago, to an extent. But I do like that they were building up to the new Sinister Six movie.
What I enjoyed that they did with the Goblin design this time round, it wasn't so much of a psychological manifestation of an Osborn. They actually took on a freaky physical manifestation that it actually made him look like a monster, rather than what some people have dubbed as the Green Ranger gone wrong with Willem Dafoe.
I actually like that version, but even that has limits. But anyway, as for how the new Goblin looked, facial-wise, it kind of creeped me out.
That's the idea.
I know, but I digress.
Mm-hmm.
In short, Amazing Spider-Man 2, it's best to go in with no expectations. Otherwise, if you can look past some of the cheesy bits between when Peter and Harry are acting like friends, or other bits, like cheesy humor. Some bits are cheesy in a bad way, some bits are cheesy in a good way. Like when Peter's trying to get all those chemical vials.
That was like Spider-Man at his best. I mean, I have to say, like, I'm sorry for interrupting, but yeah, I have to say this is definitely like one of the best portrayals of Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, don't get me wrong, and apologies for butting in there, but
no biggie.
This is where I feel that this movie series has got one aspect correct, whereas Tobey Maguire played the more ideal Peter Parker. Garfield has nailed the Spider-Man aspect perfectly, because part of Spider-Man's shtick and gimmick was he was a jokester. He'd always tell jokes to mask his true feelings. And in this one, you couldn't get the guy to shut up!
that really was like a big important aspect of his character, where the reason why he never shuts up is also used as like a strategy to annoy and confuse his opponents.
Exactly.
Indeed. Yeah, I always thought that was hilarious. That part where he was trying to get the files made me laugh. And also, who could forget his ringtone on his smartphone?
It's funny, but it's like we cannot get through like one Spider-Man movie without like a little reference to that theme song.
Personally, I prefer the '94 theme song, but that's just my personal preference.
Oh, very underrated.
Very underrated, I agree.
I'm sorry to butt in, but I really wish they put that series on DVD. It's been too long. It's been 20 years. Isn't it time?
Dude, the whole series is out on DVD now.
Wait, what? Not in the States.
Really?
Not in the States.
Man, you guys are
getting... right now.
Man, you guys are getting jacked off with that. Oh, wait, that came out wrong. Oh, my bad.
No biggie. And I was about to say, you don't say.
Is that all you got for... Is that all you got for Spidey 2, or have you got something else?
Nah, we're good.
Kaiju Noir, you've got the floor.
Alright, so with the way I see Amazing Spider-Man 2, it's like they try to fit two movies into one. One movie's plot ends up being horribly mangled and rushed and executed sloppily, and the other one being somewhat intact. I think the best part about this film is the relationship that that Spider-Man has with both Gwen and Aunt May. I feel like Emma Stone, Sally Field, and Andrew Garfield all give really great performances, very emotional. But on the other hand, I feel like the villains, they try to do this thing where they're trying to create a cinematic Spider-Man universe in the similar fashion as what Marvel is doing with their Avengers films. They're trying to cram as much like plot elements that they can in order to spin off into however many movies Sony plans to make. And as a result, it kind of really bogs down the film to where you have too many subplots going on, and some being great and others being, well, very lackluster. I think in terms of Electro, I think Jamie Foxx's performance was a bit too cartoonish for the tone of this film. And I liked how his transformation psychologically into the villain of Electro, but I was very disappointed that he was just demoted to the typical henchman lackey in the same vein as the Sandman from Spider-Man 3. When he could easily have carried the whole film by himself. As for the relationship with Harry Osborn, his friendship with Harry didn't feel believable because, again, it felt very rushed. They were trying to establish both his character, try to establish his relationship with his father, establish the fact that there's apparently a disease in the family, and then conveniently he has a suit that can keep his disease in check, which I don't know why he couldn't have used that from the beginning as opposed to the spider bite of Venom. And I liked him as the Goblin. I thought he was really creepy and very disturbing, as you would expect from the Goblin. But again, he just shows up at the very last minute, just when you think it's all going to be over. And but at least the death for Gwen Stacy, I thought it was very, very emotional, very really tugging on the heartstrings.
Yeah.
And as for the Rhino, well, I wasn't as bothered by the Rhino. I mean, I knew going in that he was just going to have a very small part, and I can deal with a villain having a bit part, kind of like how the Scarecrow had a bit part in both The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. But again, like, that doesn't excuse Electro when you have so much time setting him up, only to downplay him later. So overall, this is I feel like this is a film that had a lot of potential and has a lot of good moments in it, but it's just bogged down by just very sloppy script writing. But in the end, it's just, I feel like Spider-Man himself and his supporting cast, I think, especially Spider-Man himself, like I mentioned, this is the best, in my opinion, the best portrayal of him. He really does save the film, so it's definitely worth a watch, but it could have been so much better.
I'm going to have to agree on that, and notice the last time they tried to cram too much material into a Spider-Man movie, they ended up rebooting the series, and less we say about Spider-Man 3, the better, especially after that moment that we don't like to talk about. But...
what moment?
Spidey jazz hands.
And
moving on, please.
The thing that really knocked it down a few numbers is you finally get a decent leading female protagonist in Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, and they kill her off after the second movie, whereas you see the two of them in the first movie and it's like, this is how it's meant to be. This is how we want a Spider-Man romance angle to work. And it's like, lol, you're getting Mary Jane again. No!
Do you remember back when there were early reports that they did casted Mary Jane Watson in the film, but then they took out all her footage?
Yeah, I did hear about
Imagine
that.
how much... Yeah, you gotta wonder just how much more of a mess this would have been had they added her subplot in there as well.
I mean, to be fair to... Now, was it Cheyenne Woodley that was supposed to be playing Mary Jane?
Sadly, I do not know at the moment.
Now,
Me neither.
I've never seen the girl act, so I can't give an opinion, but if they had put her in, I'm hoping she would have been at least somewhat better than Kirsten Dunst, as I've gone on record so many times saying this. Spider-Man 1, Kirsten, okay. Second, ugh. Third, ugh. But
don't get me started on her screaming over and over and over and over and over and over.
And crying out loud, Bryce Dallas Howard was better as her Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3 than Kirsten was as Mary Jane. Notice how by the time the third movie comes around, Mary Jane is less of a redhead and more of and looking more brunette.
Now that you mention it, you're right.
Because they
in Spider-Man. Oh, sorry.
No. Go on.
Okay. Well, in real life, Kirsten is a natural blonde. So that's why in Spider-Man 1, her hair looks like that she just dyed it red. As for Spider-Man 2, it's more of a in-between her natural color and the Spider-Man 1 color. And in Spider-Man 3, it looks like she dyed it darker.
Yeah.
Trying to look like a natural redhead. And those are my 2 cents. Take it for what you will.
Yeah. Of course, we don't exactly know when we're going to get Amazing Spider-Man 3, and, you know, as good as Andrew Garfield is, and he is good as Spider-Man, by the time the third movie comes around, he's going to be pushing 34. You can't play a teenager / guy in in his early 20s forever, because Spider-Man, in most continuities, they always portray him as either late adolescent or young adult in his 20s, and occasionally up to 25. But Spider-Man has always been like that very sort of young character, whereas you can get away with someone like Robert Downey Jr. still being Iron Man in his 50s because of the fact that, well, one, Robert Downey Jr. doesn't even look his age, and two, he can still pull off Tony Stark and Iron Man because he is just that damn good. But I'm hoping they don't leave the third movie so long that by the time we actually get there, we sort of look and think, Andrew, you're good and all, but you're starting to show your age a little bit.
It could be possible that to work around the character, the actor's physical appearance, they could try to do like a a time skip and just jump straight into an era where we have like an older Peter Parker, kind of similar to how Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. You're gonna go straight into like an older Batman.
What I do like what they're doing with that is they're going for an older Batman, but not an older Batman. It's just Batman just in his 40s rather than jump, too far ahead to go with how he was depicted in The Dark Knight Returns when he's like a guy in his mid-50s. At least with Ben Affleck, I mean, he looks good for his age, which I'm not going to lie. I mean, the guy's only just turned, 41, 42, and he, in terms of how Batman actors have been, he is by far the most ripped and tallest one, because apparently in this one, he's not necessarily going to tower over Superman, but it's going to be like his eye line is actually going to meet up with Henry Cavill's forehead. It's like, okay, I've got something. It's going to be like, okay, I've got something over here. And Henry Cavill as Superman, when he's ripped, I mean, the guy is just a physical beast. But, I don't know. I mean, there's something that a lot of people are saying, oh, how can we have a guy that was terrible as Daredevil? It's like, first of all, dimwit, Daredevil was 2003, this is 2014, no one cares, we want to forget about that movie.
And Ben Affleck has already proven himself to be, at this point, like an Oscar-winning actor and director.
Fargo?
Yeah.
And,
and The Town, I believe. Yeah. I think Gone Girl. Yeah, Gone Girl, The Town, and Fargo.
Gone Girl, good lord, that movie was messed up. But then again, it's the same guy who directed Seven, and that movie was just ugh. But I think we've procrastinated enough. We'll move on to Transformers 4: Age of Extinction. This is a top contender for Movie of the Year, with the way that the inappropriate humour from the previous movies were toned down excessively to where the only questionable jokes were of Cade calling Tess's boyfriend Lucky Charms due to him being Irish. And I have to say this. Really, guys? Really? I definitely got more of what I wanted from a Transformers movie, with it being more about the Autobots versus the Decepticons and less of the human drama. Decent protagonist in Mark Wahlberg, whom I think most people can agree is miles better than Shia LaBeouf.
That is true.
Kelsey Grammer made for a good villain. How ironic it's a villain from the government. You're welcome. And we'll go with Kaiju Noir on this one.
I just gotta say, Shia LaBeouf may need a whole bunch of no's to get his point across. All Marky Mark needs is, what? No! I found a Transformer! Oh boy, so yeah, Transformers, Age of the Funky Bunch, as I like
Age of the Funky Bunch, I like that!
Hey up, miss, what you doing? Huh? What you doing? You being up to sit down? Alright. Say hi to your motherboard for me. Anyways, the bad jokes aside, I feel like this movie is definitely an improvement over the last two films. It's might be up there with the first movie. I guess I had more issues with it than MJ, where I feel like while they did make some improvements, I feel like there are certain big lingering problems that were there from the beginning. I thought a lot of the characters were very annoying, over the top, and cartoonish. I liked Mark Wahlberg's performance as his very caring and outgoing dad, but the whole running gag where like, you can't have a boyfriend, you're too young, like, the boyfriend's too old. They keep hammering that joke over and over to the point where it will past the point of it being funny. Let's see, I like the new Autobots. I thought John Goodman as Hound was hilarious.
Yeah.
Then again, I love John Goodman to begin with. I thought Ken Watanabe as that samurai transformer, I thought he was wasted because he was just playing that, that stereotypical Japanese samurai sort of. He was kind of like a Japanese stereotype from like an 80s cartoon.
Right.
But I guess that could be kind of like appropriate considering this is Transformers. But I thought that for him being such like an Oscar like award-winning actor, I thought he was wasted. I really like the premise of having a bunch of Autobots on the run from like a worldwide manhunt against them, and it did really lead to this very interesting portrayal of Optimus Prime, where he kind of suffers from like post-traumatic stress disorder, kind of leading me to refer to him as Rambo Prime. Especially like when he first shows up in the scene in the movie, he's just he feels like he's still in that last battle, going, "I'll kill you all." But I don't think they really did anything with Psycho Rambo Prime, nor with the whole Autobots on the run, because while it did have an interesting premise, to me it just devolved into another, we gotta save the planet from a large invasion of faceless, nameless enemies, and then we'll all chase after this random MacGuffin for the fourth time. And this MacGuffin because we had like the Spark, the Allspark, we had the Matrix of Leadership in the second movie. We had those like portal gate things that Sentinel carried.
Yeah. And
here we have the Seed, which I don't think was really. I thought the Seed was like poorly explained and just brought up at the last minute. And again, it was just another big battle with a lot of explosions and quick cuts and shaky cams, which is something that I didn't really look any different from the last movies. And I just felt, while the last two movies made me frustrated, this movie made me feel really bored, because I feel like the director and everyone else is just going through the motions again. They add a lot of interesting ideas, but they don't really do anything with them and just rely on the same sort of shtick that they've been doing since 2007. And finally, I did like the Lockdown and Galvatron, but I didn't think that those two villains were used to the best of their abilities. And as for the Dinobots, they were certainly cool. I won't deny that. But I think they did not contribute anything to the plot whatsoever. It's just Optimus going, "Hey, we need backup. Let me pull these dinosaurs out of nowhere with no explanation whatsoever." And the whole, like, "We will give you freedom by forcing you to fight for us." And it was like, wait, what, Optimus? I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Weren't you all, what happened to freedom is the right of all sentient beings?
Yeah.
But, this movie was entertaining to some degree, but I feel like there are definitely better options for if you want just a big, mindless, giant robot action movie with great plot and great characters. Now, personally, I would recommend Pacific Rim, which came out last year, but as for Transformers Age of Extinction, it's passable for me.
You mentioned some characters and cast not being utilised properly. I didn't like the way Galvatron was played down, considering it's just Megatron being reincarnated, but they've done it in so many variations of continuities of Transformers. Why should this be any different? And Sophia Myles essentially just coming in just for a coffee break. I mean, this is a very, very talented actress,